Better late than never, I guess. Aftersun is what I was going to put on the list, but then I said, nope. I figured Nope deserved a rewatch because it stayed ripe in my mind ever since I saw it. Reappraising it, I felt an even greater appreciation for what Peele did here. My criticisms didn't really go away. I still think the middle drags a little, but it's original, it's clever, it's cutting edge. I love when movies explore the pursuit of truth, of authenticity. Cast over this movie is a shadow of obscured images, warped symbols, and a culture that takes the truth and uses it as a sensationalized tractor beam pointed at the masses. And it does all this while including the eccentricity of a retro blockbuster, fun characters, exciting set pieces, great cinematography. I regret saying Nope lacked rewatch value, because that's exactly what it took for me to appreciate it the way it deserved. Another chance. An honest look. It's amazing to me how little the core conflict of the Banshees of Inisherin develops beyond it being introduced, yet the drama that comes from it continues to evolve. Being so heartbreakingly vulnerable with its characters' anxieties, their loneliness, is what makes it something special. Compared to the bleakness of Three Billboards, McDonough incorporates more dark humor to tonally balance the story here. It's enough to remind you that life is continuing as usual. Those feelings of abandonment or existential dread don't stop the world, and how we rage against them can be just as unhealthy as the consequences of those feelings themselves. There's plenty more you could say about this film, but in particular, the very first scene of Tar caught me off guard. You see Lydia goes on and on as she's interviewed, obviously intelligent and passionate about her topic. Immediately, the movie captures how academics talk. Talk about what they've been working on, where they've been, and what they think of the spot they met up for lunch. But as the film goes on to let us discover her deep-running vices and how she conceals them, you realize as an audience member how easy it can be to buy into a person's word when they come from a point of power and authority. And Tar prods you to question that authority so naturally when a person like that abuses their power. It's not always as blunt as sensational narratives might have you believe. In the moment, abusers can be clever. They can easily make it sound like their manipulation came from a place of common sense. It is a dark, brilliantly performed movie, and somehow manages the single funniest ending in years. For how long our culture's effectively moved online, you wouldn't believe how few movies showcase internet culture authentically. You'd think it'd come as second nature. Taking an extra step to try and scare you as they do that is even harder. We're all going to the World's Fair I thought would be spooky. Instead it was very sad. It takes on the tone of a creepypasta, but hides a deeper narrative about online depersonalization, only experiencing others and eventually yourself in the form of a digital construct, going outside and occupying real spaces, but not feeling like you're really there. It's as if the same externalization you undergo to exist online must now be consciously done onto the real world, having regressed into an eternal spectator. If internet age loneliness was a movie, it would be this movie.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bjork.
The Northman is a great mix of Robert Eggers' signature devices as a director and rousing historical fantasy. Amleth's revenge journey at the heart of the film anchors what could easily have been a tacky lean into an aesthetic that doesn't really need to be attached to a good project to have fans. But it takes itself seriously both in story and execution for its mythological inspirations to carry the weight they're meant to. If more studio blockbusters could be like this, brutal, entertaining, and feral, but also thoughtfully made, then we would have nothing to complain about when it comes to modern movies. I feel like horror fans got everything they wanted in 2022. Normies got The Menu and Smile, the sweaty A24 fans got Nope and Barbarian, the girlies got X and Pearl, you sick fucks got another Terrifier, an audience of literally no one got Halloween Ends. But for me, my favorite was Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. I think my favorite thing about Bodies is how it has no problem capturing and making fun of the way elder Gen Z young adults act, but doesn't caricaturize them to a smug-ass Bill Maher degree. When it has a character weaponize their mental health or their race, you know the writer is making fun of the character rather than the issue, which in the hands of so many other people would not be the case. And it crams this clever, delicate writing into a well-realized horror premise that hides the year's most entertaining comedy of errors. 3,000 Years of Longing. For a movie that doesn't really have a whole lot going on plot-wise, I'm just in love with how lavishly, how extravagantly it can describe something. It's mostly Idris Elba as a genie telling Tilda Swinton's stories from across historical empires, but those stories run an effective range of moods and tones. They're romantic and funny and tragic, and so often turn just bizarre out of nowhere in the best possible ways. The way George Miller shoots this film, the way it's edited, down to the color correction, it's like every other movie is merely an approximation of what movies are supposed to look like, but Miller's are what they actually are. Beaver. Hundreds of beavers. Imagine if a silent Buster Keaton comedy had as many gags as a Zucker Brothers comedy, written by a guy who probably grew up playing the original Nintendo Entertainment System. While most of it just comes from homage, Hundreds of Beavers is upheld by exceptionally hilarious mixed media visual gags and structural payoffs within the story. It's deceptive given the budget, but the way the comedy and story end up looping back on each other once it gets going is so intricate and the kind of cleverness which separates it from what could have been a chronically online, overly referential slog. It does start a bit slow though. I have heard some people say they couldn't get into it at first. So as a healthy compromise, at least stay until the opening title card before you decide to turn it off. I'm sure you'll be on board by then. Babylon had most people thinking Damien Chazelle fell off, and that's exactly how you know the film-going public is cooked. I'm one of those guys who believes it goes right up there with the rest of his movies. You see Chazelle as an artist beautifully reckoning with their love of cinema now that he's achieved his own dream. It's bombastic without losing control or shape, and that electric energy is felt for the whole 3-hour runtime that'll just melt away in front of you. Every actor annihilates their role, from the bit parts and cameos all the way up to Margot Robbie, who is on top of the world here. We're not short on nostalgic Hollywood period pieces, nor conversation starters about how old Hollywood was a debaucherous playground. But if you want a movie dramatizing the industry's appropriately Caligulan collapse and transition from the silent era to the next, obviously watch Singin' in the Rain. And, Babylon. I gotta be honest, 2022 was the last year I paid any real attention to what was coming out in theaters. Because of that, I'd like for my pick of movie of the year to have been something unexpected, but it isn't. Not for lack of trying, I watched dozens of movies just to catch myself up, hoping I'd find a hidden gem. But when it was all over, Everything Everywhere All at Once still kicked everything's ass. Considering the sheer all-encapsulating diversity of things this movie tries to do and to be and to say, not a fraction of it should be as successful as it is. There's so many opportunities for the movie to not work, and it just does every single time. The thematically appropriate excess of tones, acting styles, jokes, and twists and turns in the story, they all succeed over and over. They all stay cohesive. It's as funny and thrilling as it is life-affirming. Sometimes the obvious basic bitch choice for the movie of the year is just the right answer. And to me, that was Everything Everywhere All at Once.